there's one huge problem, and Arthur touched on it earlier, is speed. They just absolutely kill your page speed. So if you've got a pop-up, it would seem to me that if you're not concerned with the page speed on a particular page, put the pop-up there. But if it's a landing page, that most certainly is where you're hoping that most of your traffic is coming to that specific page. Now, if you put that pop-up on that page, you're basically scaring the people away on mobile devices, because the mobile devices are not going to be able to get there fast enough.
Yeah, it depends on the pop-up. If the pop-up is within the structure of the site, it's not so bad. But it's when you start loading scripts for chats and ads and, you know, you're basically embedding, you know, pop-ups and things like that. Those really kill your website speed. You know,
but I think when you guys tested the one on our site, that was just a generic image similar to what our display image is right now, with an enter your name and email. And I think you guys calculated that out to a 9-second delay.
Yeah.
So that's huge if you only got 3 seconds on average before they're you know, jumping ship.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't get a chance to give this to Arthur before I added this, but I'm going to put in, I know you guys have all had the tools, but the page speed, I did some research again to get more information right from Google's mouth, if you will. And let's see, oops, wrong spot. I wanted to find out what the specifics are. I was taken aback, to tell you the truth, because Google is really expecting a lot. And here's what I found, and I'm putting it into the chat right now for everybody to have that update. If you look towards the bottom of this tools text file, the page speed load time and LCP, which is the one that you're concerned about quite a bit. But Google is saying the LCP should be under 2 seconds, but no higher than 2 seconds, which is the largest contentful paint. So it's like, that's fast. Yeah,
the LCP is above the fold. That is the hero section. That is the first thing people see. You know, and if you got anything lazy loading, or if you got things sliding in, you know, animation, pop-ups, you know, chat pop-ups. You bet it slows down the page, man. You know,
or the video backgrounds.
Oh, that's worse than a pop-up. I mean, that's a tremendous amount to consider when you've got a video.
You could defer it, and you can, you know, you could delay it, you know, but it's still, you know, it's not easy to do.
Okay.
You know,
best thing for a video is to not have it in a pop-up at all. You have a link that very clearly says this is a video for blah blah, and you click on that and either comes down or it comes up, whatever it is, but it doesn't come into the page until you've clicked on that link.
Yeah, he's talking about a background video.
Yeah, the background.
On a background image, it's not a pop-up. It's similar to what I have behind me when it's a video running and you guys see it, you know.
Right.
So if I change it,
it doesn't make any difference what you change it to. Video is a video, and they take it's a tremendous amount of speed loss having a video in the page.
Okay, so if I do this, you're saying the time that it took me to do that to the time when you saw it was incredibly long.
No,
now,
you're taking that out of context.
Okay.
We are always talking about mobile devices when we're talking about speed, because a desktop, they're always going to be fast. So what you see on a desktop means nothing. What we are talking about when we're talking speed is what happens to a mobile device. And the mobile devices, as I've explained before, they're so small that they cannot have a large processor and all the RAM. So they're limited to the speed that they can run.
So you want to
things
limit
are
your
really, pardon?
So you want to limit your websites so it doesn't take up speed from your mobile devices, but yet you don't want your mobile devices to be used to communicate with you through text or other things.
Mobile devices for communication is just something as far as a developer is concerned. That's a completely different subject. What we're talking about is for anybody who's got a website, you need to be concerned about a mobile device. And that's our huge thing. We're trying to teach people one of the biggest things. You've got to have the speed for mobile devices. You've got less than 3 seconds to serve your page, whatever page that mobile device lands on, or that mobile device user leaves. That's the average statistics, and that's coming right out of Google. So if that page doesn't load in under 3 seconds, they're gone. Why do you care? Because about 70% of the searches done in Google are done on a mobile device. And the other thing too, Google doesn't display slow pages to mobile search results. So your slow page of any website, if the page is too slow, then the page just doesn't get in the mobile search results. Does that make sense, Ed?
Okay.
Yeah, your background, Ed, has nothing to do with what's on the website because you're using Zoom to display that background. If that background was on a website, on the very first thing that you land on, that video, actually what that is probably a GIF file and not a video. But regardless, the time it takes for that video to load, even though it looks like it's loading fast, it takes a lot longer than you think. You may see it visually, but in the background, it may take 9-10 seconds. And for it to load completely, I should say. Mm-hmm. So if that video takes that long to load, it's not likely you're going to be found on mobile. So you'll be searching and you won't on your phone looking for a website. And if you're not loading under 3 seconds at least, you're probably not going to get found in the search results on mobile.
For those that are still here, I'm going to show you something.
I got another meeting, so I got to bail.
Okay.
All right.
It's even though pages need to be fast, and that information that I put in that text file is new just this last week. New for me to add it, but it's not new from Google. What the numbers are showing is like, how in the world are you going to hit that? It does take some work. It can be done, but it all means, and if you look at those numbers, you just kind of go, I don't get it. How am I ever going to hit that? So I'll never be in the mobile search results. You can, but it's going to take work depending on what you have on the page. But if you don't try to hit those numbers, yeah, you might as well forget the mobile devices. Any questions on that part? I know, Marinella, I'm not sure how much development that you do, but that page speed is a direct, well, I think that pop-ups directly affect the page speed. So that's something for you to think. And the numbers that I've got in this file, that came directly out, and I've showed the pages from Google, 2 different links where that information was. It isn't anything that I made up. It's something that's coming directly from Google themselves.
Yeah, the pop-up should only hit after the page is loaded. After the page is loaded and you're scrolling down, then it's already loaded. You don't have to worry about the speed then.
Right.
But it's that initial, when the browser first hits that page and it's not cached, then, it's going to take longer eventually what happens is the browser caches the page once it loads. So that way, if you don't clear the cache and you go back to that website, it'll load fast again because there's a copy of it already in the browser.
Right.
You know, so it's that first initial, first contentful paint is what takes the time to load. And that's the number you have to go by.
And these numbers, if you use the tools that we've shown you, you'll see those numbers instead of looking at your device or on your computer or whatever it is. A lot of people want to argue, well, mine's really fast. I know even on my phone, it loads really well. You've been there before. If you do the test, they test it as if they have never been there before, and nothing is going to cache. And you can test it 15 times, but it's still going to test it as if somebody was brand new to the site. But that page speed, and that's what it comes down to for your pop-ups. If you've got a pop-up, load it after the page has finished loading everything else, and make sure that that pop-up is not interfering. In other words, it doesn't take over the whole page. It stays someplace nice out of the way.
Well, a lot of times I won't even let pop-ups on mobile. You know, I mean, I don't let it happen. Sometimes I do. It depends on the situation, but you know, a lot of times by default, a lot of the themes, WordPress theme stuff, won't allow pop-ups on mobile. You know, just because of that. You know, especially above the full. Yeah, but further on down, I mean, after the page loads, it doesn't matter. You know, but if the pop-up is not optimized, and it takes time for it to load, it may not load at all. You know, because it has to be instantaneous. You know, and if it doesn't, you know, if it fails to load, then that is a mark against your page speed. You know, or you could get what's called scroll jank. You know, to where it moves. You know, it'll pop up and it'll pop up again, or pop up and move on you, and things like that. That's a bad user experience. You know, you get penalized for that. You know, so there's lots of pop-ups. I mean, when they come up, they have to be optimized for mobile. You know, they have to be resized. They have to be copacetic with the viewport.
Now, I know that he's got an opinion, and I want to hear it. Maury, or can you come online and tell us what you think about pop-ups?
Oh, no, not Maury.
That's opening a can of worms, because the question then becomes, why do you want a pop-up? What purpose is it serving you? What part of the buyer's journey is the person in that visits your site? If they're not in buyer mode, what's the point of having a pop-up? They're not buying no matter what anyway. So that's why I said to Art before, I could talk for an hour on this topic, because there's a ton of psychology to when and how and why to use a pop-up on a website.
And if.
That's what Brunella was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a so my opinion is I hate pop-ups right up to the point where the pop-up has value to me, then I don't hate it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Because when it has no value to me, I hate it. But if I'm looking to buy something and before I leave, someone pops up a 50% discount for a $4 million Ferrari, am I going to hate the pop-up? Hell no, he just knocked $2 million off the car. I love that pop-up.
Yeah, I'll give you a tip.
So that's why I said there's a lot of psychology to pop-ups. The answer isn't yes or no. It's like, it depends.
True.
And how and where you're using it. It's not, the answer is not as simple as what do I think?
No.
Most times my answer is I hate them. Until I don't.
Yep. That's a good answer. I like that. Yeah. We're gonna have to steal that one from you too, Maury. We already stole pitch slapping. Now everybody on Alignable's calling it pitch slapping now.
I noticed that. People are liking that.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's a whole topic in itself. If you want to get into discussing when, why, and where to use them, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
than what you guys, because I mean, you guys are about SEO. I'm talking about sales psychology, which is taking you guys into the weeds from what you guys do, which is SEO.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, that's what Marinella, she was saying the same thing. She talking about content marketing, and she said earlier that there's a psychology behind it and everything else. I totally agree with that. And there's a right place and a wrong place to use them.
it's getting through all the questions answered from if you need it, why you need it. Just like Maury was saying, you got to go through all those things first. And after you've answered and you still come to, okay, yes, I'm going to use it, and you figured out where you tried to keep it out of the way, you also have to think of, is it going to slow my page down? So when you apply that to the page, make sure it does not slow down the page. If it does, you're going to have to do some work to be able to get that thing to get back up to the right speed.
Okay, Thomas,
So
on that topic, go ahead.
The next question after you say, is it going to slow down, is what can I do to mitigate? Because it's always right. It's always, you balance it. The more pluses for SEO you have, the better it is. So if you know that you have a minus with a pop-up, then you see, what else can I do? What else can I do to reduce? So obviously, using a CDN, optimizing the images. I mean, so there are a number of things you can do. Looking at the code. I don't do code necessarily, but I know how to read code. So I know how to see if there is an issue or not. And I try to stay away from Divi and Elementor and things like that.
Can I speak to that for a second, Thomas?
Sure, go ahead.
With a pop-up, if I'm in phase 3, buyer mode, I've got credit card in hand and I'm looking to buy, and the pop-up comes up on me exiting a page because I didn't buy and offering me that 50% discount, page speed's irrelevant because you're giving me the pop-up when I'm leaving, not when I'm coming, and the page has already been loaded.
Right.
If you give me a pop-up when I arrive at the site before I'm even ready to buy, I'm going to leave the site, forget the pop-up, because you're annoying me before I even got to where I want to be.
Right.
Right.
But if the thing is, in general, the pop-up can affect the page speed regardless of when it pops up.
Sure.
And if the page is not loading fast, then you're not even going to see the page to buy anything to begin with.
But that's my point, Arthur. If I'm on the page and I've already found what I wanted to buy, and I'm like a lot of people, I'll click on it and put it in my cart and then go shop somewhere else and maybe come back. One of the ways to stop cart abandonment is to offer them a discount before they exit.
Sure.
Now, if you give me 20% off, I might just go back and buy it now that it's in my cart instead of leaving to go shopping somewhere else.
Sure.
Well, everything's already loaded, so now the pop-up is not affecting your page speed, right?
That's
Right.
exactly what I was going to say.
It's very situational.
If you're on the page,
Yeah.
then page speed no longer is an issue. And
The other thing to keep in mind is when you look at mobile statistics and how buyers buy, buyers, 85 to 90% of buyers only buy things on mobile that are low cost. Higher ticket items, they tend to go home and go on the desktop if you look at the statistics.
That is interesting to know.
So if you're putting a pop-up on a mobile site and the only thing they're buying is a $15 or $20 items, is it really worth a 10% discount for a 20? Who's going to save $2 on a $20? Who cares?
Yeah, I agree completely on that.
Right. So pop-ups on a mobile are even questionable because of how people buy. Now, again, I'm getting back into sales psychology and not SEO again, but you have to take these factors into mind when you decide if you even want to pop up on mobile. Is it really going to benefit me? Is it worth the risk of page speed to try and offer a $2 discount in the hopes that somebody might buy?
Exactly.
So there's a lot more to it than just technical.
Even if it didn't bother the page speed and everything else was fine, it's just if your item is so small that 10% is not going to give you more than $1 off or something.
Is it worth it?
Why? Yeah, that's not worth putting that pop-up in there.
These are the psychology parts. Now I'm dipping, like you said, I'm taking you guys off in the weeds again, but sorry. But those are the psychology pieces away from the technical pieces that influence whether it's worth having one and having the risk of it affecting your technical piece.
Agreed.
That's why usually, depending on what the pop-up is, you know, I won't engage them. I disengage them for mobile.
It's
Just
a
for
can of
that
worms.
reason.
There's no easy answer to this. I mean,
No,
I don't have an easy answer.
no. And that's why I just kind of had an open forum today, because I thought, you know, a lot of this is opinion, but it does come down to you really need to know if you need it first. And of course, just, you know, I think Maury needs to write us a list so we can walk people through that list of questions going, okay, what about this? What about that? Because you do need to go through a lot of information to say, should you do it? Whatever you use, and whatever discount, whatever it's going to be, should you use it?
And when and where and how?
Yeah.
Like there's so much to it.
There was one site that comes to my mind that where we actually, you know, the person thought that they needed a pop-up and wanted on mobile and everything else, and actually watched the conversions drop because the bounce rate went up, you know, when we engaged the pop-up, but then when we took the pop-up down, the conversions actually increased.
Yeah, because the annoyance rate went away. It went down.
Yeah, bounce rate dropped. The bounce rate went from it was like I think it was at like 38%, I think is what it was. And then it climbed up to like 70 something. You know, and then when we turned it off and stuff, then it dropped back down to where it should have been. And you know, so it's really trial and error. I mean, it's just like anything, man. You know, you gotta watch the numbers. You know, you gotta track stuff, and you know, the people. Go ahead.
Well, that's why the buyer's journey is so important, because let's say I'm looking for a pair of hiking boots, but I don't know anything about hiking boots. So I'm in stage 1 of my buyer mode. The first thing I'm going to do is go research hiking boots, because I don't know what kind or what brand, what I should be looking for. I'm not ready to buy. I'm still researching. So I land on your site that sells hiking boots. First thing you do is pop up a 15% discount in front of my face. Like, I don't even know what kind of hiking boots I want now. Guess what I'm doing? Bye. I'm going somewhere else that doesn't do that to me.
Yeah.
Hey,
Because I'm not in the buyer mode.
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, the one thing I haven't heard anyone say is security with some of the pop-ups or safety. Some of the pop-ups are actually hazardous. When I say hazardous, I mean they're trying to get something from you or get information from you to use it for no good reasons. So we have a lot of those pop-ups as well. So you have to be careful when you see those pop-ups. So we haven't really talked about those types.
Absolutely. Pop-ups can be for good or for bad, right? It's all up to the individual and how they're using them.
Yeah, it depends on the website and whether the website has security issues and whether it's been hacked and someone has access to the files and implanted, you know, it could be malware, it could be anything of that nature. But if you got good security on your website, that's likely not going to happen. But if you're running ads and things like that, ads that you don't know, you know, yeah, sure. You got to be careful, you know.
Well, the other thing, Arthur, is somebody could be using a pop-up that's a pitch slapper that's strictly trying to get your email address so they can bombard you with emails trying to sell you their shit. That's not necessarily illegal or wrong, but it's immoral and dishonest. And people will do that with pop-ups.
Yeah, we could get into a lot with that discussion. I mean, we can get into what's called cloaking and you know, into the hacking end and all that stuff, because I have seen it happen. You know, I mean, there was one site, it was an accountant's website where somebody hacked the website, you know, and they actually planted and embedded a code to a pop-up to a porn site.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, of course, we had to go through and clean the server up and all that stuff. But and it was because of a negligent password is how they were able to do it. They actually went through a plugin that wasn't updated for like a year. Is how they gained access. What we found out. But, you know, but yeah, I mean, it was an accountant's website of all things, you know. So, he was getting all these phone calls and stuff. He almost lost his domain because of it. But
Yikes. That's brutal.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Two things. I think that Barbara, your security question, I think that's most sites are a lot more secure now than they used to be, but that doesn't mean that you won't install something that isn't secure, whether it's a pop-up plugin or something else. So you always have to be aware of those things.
Mhm.
I don't know that the pop-ups are any more or less secure than anything else. It all depends on who makes it. The other thing that I did is while we were talking, I found this site that I put in the chat. And I thought that would be interesting to read through the whole thing. This is something that was written last year, May, so it's just not quite a year old. And I thought this would be interesting for everybody to go through and read what this person had to say, because apparently he's analyzed 1+ billion pop-ups. So I thought, well, that's somebody who has done some research.
Analyzing 1 billion pop-ups.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how they did that.
Well, they have no life. That must be all they do.
Wow. I mean, right away, those statistics right there, it just, I don't trust them already.
Well, it's time to eat and sleep when you're looking at that many pop-ups.
Yeah.
I
I'll read
haven't read anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if he watched each one or if he had software that did it. I got to think you had to have some kind of software that was.
Yeah, I'm sure it's legit. It's just first impression when you see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. First thing I see, 1 billion pop-up. Yeah, right.
Well, that's a good point, because that falls into the marketing category of too good to be true, and that scares people off. Even though it could be true, the perception is it's not likely true, and that scares people.
Yeah.
You have to be careful with that.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, we won't hold you any further. Any other questions? We have to wind it up for the day or for the week. Did we discourage you, Marinella? Or help?
Not at all. I always enjoy these discussions. For me, it just makes my brain cells more active for the day.
I was just going to say, if we don't do anything else, we're going to make you think. Every subject that we've covered, it's just well, now I got to think about that.
Like a round table, a think tank, and I always like to compare discussions like this. It's because I'm an artist. I've been an artist all my life, and it's like getting in a group of artists at a gallery, walking in and asking them what's more important in color theory. Is it color value or color intensity? And then walk away. And
that would create
the fur will fly.
Yeah, I bet.
It's like walking onto an industrial oil and gas site and asking the first Newfoundlander you see what he would do if he won the lottery, and just it will shut down that entire site for half the day.
Well, that should do it for this week, folks. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your input. Don't know if we really clarified a lot, but gave you a lot to think about. So there you go.
Just opinions. Yeah.
No right or wrong on this one. It's just
anyway, sorry.
Make sure.
Sorry I was late, Thomas, but I had a haircut appointment and she's better looking than you are.
Well, I never. You took your, what do you call it? Your stylist over me.